Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, everyone at home, for joining us. I'm Jenna. I'm the collections manager at the Southern Ohio Museum here in Portsmouth, and I'm also the performing arts coordinator. Most of you will have just watched a beautiful performance by our CCM trio here. If you didn't watch it, go back and watch it. And we're here to learn a little bit about the musicians and the music they chose to play for us. Before we get started, those of you who don't know, we have our online concert series that's been going on for a little while. We also have gallery tours and educational content. So if you haven't been following our YouTube channel, definitely do that. I need to thank the Scioto Foundation for so generously supporting so much of our program, and also Bart and Jan Suverkrop for underwriting this classical series that you guys are watching today. And I want to thank the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, all the staff and all the students who have worked with us to bring this series to you, and everybody who keeps following us and keeps participating. Why don't you all introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, KayCee Galano, play the violin, and I'm a third year here at the University of Cincinnati. I also am from the Philippines, and I'm having fun here with my friends.
Hi, I'm Vicki Chen. I'm a second year doctorate student in piano. I come from Malaysia, and I've been studying here for over 8 years now, and it's been wonderful in the States. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Marcel Bobé. I'm originally from Corpus Christi, Texas. So if anyone likes Selena, yeah. But I've been having a good semester or school year despite COVID and everything. But it's been an honor to be able to perform with this trio and be able to perform art during this time.
So what inspired you guys to start studying music? Have you always been musical? Did you start young?
Yeah, I'll start. My parents are musicians. My stepfather is a violinist and my mom's a violist, so it was kind of like a natural thing. I actually started on violin, but it's just the cello. It was just too nice. It was too nice to not pick up. So I started cello at 4,
Wow.
and ever since then, growing up with parents who know all the repertoire, and especially my mom's who's a violist, where we share the cello and violist share some stuff. It's just growing up around that environment was really an inspiration to. Like when I was young, I didn't think that I was gonna be you're not really thinking, oh, I'm gonna be a performer. But at one point in middle school, I just knew it was just the right choice to be an artist.
So I think I have an older sister who's 8 years older than me, and she started music lessons. And I think I remember hearing her practice, and I really liked music. And I asked my mom for me to have lessons, and I started music lessons when I was 3 years old. And I remember when I was just growing up, I loved music and I loved listening to my sister. And basically, I think even from when I was young, I wanted to be better than my sister.
All right.
I mean, my parents are not musicians, but they loved music. My mom sings and my dad plays the trumpet. And so in ways, they appreciate music, even though they don't know the technical terms and whatnot. And so I think having a very supportive family, I think, helps a lot. And I just continue my lessons. My teachers were so nice, and I just love it. And I just couldn't think of anything else I would rather do it. So that's why I'm still in piano.
A similar story. It's like a mix of both Vicki's and Marcel's story. My mom is a piano teacher, but my dad is not really involved in music, but he does love to play the guitar and sing. So I think I got inspired to play the violin after going to my mom's music school. I would go with her and spend maybe an afternoon, and right next to her Now, right next to her room was a violin studio. And so I would just like peek in there and just listen in. And then I think doing that every day sort of like made me like the violin. And so my love for it started to grow. And so I think that's when I first told my mom, I want to play the violin.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know for us here, things have been very different since the initial shutdown for COVID. You know, we went from being a very physical institution, which we still are, but now our audience is no longer with us in the building. Hopefully that will be changing soon, but we had to make a big transition to have all of our content online. For you as performers, what's it been like now compared to before all of this happened?
Okay, so it's funny that closing down, I was actually very happy in a way. It's a bad thing, but I was happy because I was like, oh, I have time to practice now.
Yeah.
But we went along. I was kind of like, you know, it is hard to be isolated from people after a while. And being musicians, we want to share our music with others. And so after, 3-6 months, it got really hard, I think, to keep the motivation. But I think I learned a lot in this time as well, like with technology. I think that really helps. I feel like I can communicate a lot more. Like since my family is not in the States, they're in Malaysia, I'm like better at live streaming and stuff like that they can also watch my concerts, which never happened before. And I'm very thankful for that, these sorts of things.
Yeah, that's definitely like being able to reach a wider audience is definitely like kind of a silver lining in all this, is that now maybe we're a little bit more connected than we were to people farther away. So do you guys find yourself doing a lot more like digital performances than you used to? Yeah. Yeah. How do you like it as opposed to in-person performances? Do you feel like you don't get the same kind of feedback? Do you miss that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I'm a very passionate person. I actually hate all this digital stuff.
Okay.
Of course, we need to adapt and everything, but it's just, especially with the mics aren't gonna pick up their originality of playing something live, right? So then it's like sometimes you get feedback and they're like, oh, you didn't play this loud enough or soft enough, or you didn't do this right, but you're like, no, yeah, I did. Like you wouldn't get that same feedback in person, right?
Like the quality of the recording doesn't reflect your playing.
If you only do it in person, people give you complete coaches. They're like, oh, but it's all a part of what we've been adapting to during this pandemic. You can't complain, because we still want to perform. We're artists. Like, yeah, we're musicians, but I feel like the artistry, especially when we're like we had our concert last night, and it was really nice to feed off of the audience, right? Because especially when you do performances without audiences, you have to feed off of something else. So you either go deeper into the music or you do more research on the piece. So there's silver linings, but then there's also thunderstorms. But it's like a good combination of both, which helps you, which actually been making this whole time with COVID very interesting. You don't know what to expect. And
yeah.
I like that.
As a person who is not a musician, I didn't consider the aspect of just the difference in what you hear in person as opposed to what you're hearing over recording. But I do kind of understand that lack of audience feedback. When we had performances, I really enjoyed like having been able to put something on, and then people afterwards like obviously enjoyed it. And I imagine that it's definitely similar for you as musicians to be able to feel that in person. I miss that a lot. With digital, you just don't get that same audience feeling after the fact. But what do you guys, I don't know, what do you anticipate as far as reopening? Are you looking forward to doing more performances in person? Do you have some in-person performances planned for the future?
Yeah, it's just Vicki's leaving and she's graduating. So
Yeah.
but thanks, Vic. But no, definitely looking forward. You know, we're hoping that the 2021-2022 school year is gonna be everything's gonna be back to normal.
Yeah.
And you know, the excitement of, you know, playing in like, you know, bigger groups like orchestra and maybe bigger chamber groups. Because, you know, this school year we're limited to only trios,
Mm-hmm.
duos and trios, you know, health protocols. So, you know, I'm looking forward to like a sextet or quintet or something, you know.
Yeah. Also, you know, again, not being a musician, I mean, that seems obvious now that you say it, but yeah, like even the kind of groups that you guys have been able to form have been limited. Well, outside of music, what are you guys looking for? Just like in your daily life, like what are you guys most looking forward to opening up?
Travel.
What is it?
Traveling.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, going to McDonald's.
Eating
Eating
out.
food. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't the whole pandemic. Like I haven't even gone to an outdoor one. I don't know it because it's been so long. It feels weird, you know, to sit down and like, okay, like what would you like to drink? I don't know what I want to drink, you know. So it's definitely family, like being able to see family without having to like make sure that you get your COVID test or something, and then having to quarantine in your house for 2 weeks before you can see family normally, you know, it sucks.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely miss traveling. Just even, you know, planning a day trip somewhere. I am really looking forward to that too. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what it is like to be a music student? You know, like what's your, I don't know, your day-to-day music student life?
Well, usually it's wake up, turn on the computer, and then sit there for a few hours every day.
Yeah.
At least for me, most of my classes are asynchronous. It's nice to have, you know, to control your time so you can practice whenever you want and then do your homework whenever. I think in a way that's been a nice like advantage, but it's still sad because all you do is just look at a screen. And if it was a synchronous class, it's sad because when you have to do discussions, you can't really, you know, like feel the person or stuff like that, and everything's on the screen, and then, you know, your eyes start to hurt and you get tired throughout the day, and, you know, all those and stuff. So I think that's the sad part of the
And
Definitely.
I forgot to say, completely passed my mind. Another thing that we're looking forward to once the pandemic over is actually going to like music festivals or stuff like that. I did a couple of music festivals online last summer. I don't know. It's like I didn't know what to. I was really bummed out because I'm like, okay, yeah, like I still performed and did my master classes and everything, but you know, also the I feel other than performing and, you know, having a good musical experience with staff or whatever, is the importance of making connections at those festivals, right? And I this last year I kind of hit up like an obstacle. Like I felt like I haven't met more people because the musical world is really small. It's surprisingly small. Like a lot of people know a lot of people. So that I feel is the one thing that a lot of classical artists or just artists at music schools in general are having kind of trouble with, is that we haven't been able to go to music festivals, because I always look forward to that.
Yeah.
So sorry, that was like a tangent. But.
No, that's fine. I mean, I also really miss music festivals in person, you know. I think probably everybody has those like summer expectations that just weren't fulfilled this past year. You know, all of the things that we usually look forward to. Hopefully this year, we'll see, I guess. Well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about the music and the composer that from the piece that you chose to perform for us.
So the piece we performed was Dvorak's Trio in F minor. Dvorak was a Czech composer in the late 1800s, and he is known for his very folk sort of tunes and melodies, and he wrote many wonderful pieces like from the New World Symphony and
The Dvorak Cello Concerto.
what
The American Quartet,
exactly,
yeah.
Yes.
And actually something that we learned, you can kind of make a comparison to, I forgot who told us this, but Dvorak is considered kind of like, you know, like a positive composer, you know, very ecstatically.
More of like, it's not so much like depressing music. He
Yeah,
usually
like not
writes
depressing romantic.
Inspired, like optimistic
inspired.
music.
But he wrote this piece in F minor after the death of his mom.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you can just feel like the cathartic, like the way he released the emotion through the piece, and it's a very emotional piece. And but someone made a comparison to me, the same with Mendelssohn, that when his sister Fanny died, he wrote his quartet in F minor as well, and that's also like a very, like, you know, it's not very Mendelssohn, you know, because usually his stuff is very happy and yeah. So the Dvorak it's just a very dense. It's almost like Brahms-esque, like when you play it, you know, it's very dense, it's very thick.
Yeah, it's almost symphonic in a way.
Yeah, very orchestral.
Yeah, because the texture in the piano is very thick.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the cello, and sometimes we'll play along with the piano, or the violin plays along with the piano, and we all have chords, and there's no like melodic line. Sometimes it's all combined. But I think that is how Dvorak wanted to just portray his emotion after his mom died, and you can just feel the intensity of that in the music.
And you can still see like that he's trying really hard to not be depressed in the piece. And there's some moments in the piece that you're like, oh, there he is, you know. In the third movement, there's some very like positive tunes that kind of come out, but then he just goes right back into this this anguished state.
Right. Yeah, so maybe there's a little bit of like attempt at celebration of her life in the piece, as well as the grief that he was feeling. So what made you guys choose this piece?
I wanted the challenge to play this very difficult
the third
piano.
movement that kind of did it for you, or
well, that as well as just like I love the denseness of it, you know. About how thick it was, I was just like, whoa, it's wonderful. There's so many things that we can do with the piece, you know.
Yeah, and I think we talked like between this or Brahms at some point, because Dvorak is very underplayed, this trio, and so we wanted to perform it just because it's not as played. And I think also that year when we were deciding to choose what trio to play, a lot of people were playing the Brahms trio.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then the other Dvorak trio is the dumb key in F major, but everybody plays it. So it's like, okay, you know.
Yeah, you wanted to choose something that wasn't quite as played. That's understandable. So we do have some questions, just a couple of questions that were submitted from some audience members. What were some of your early musical interests and inspirations? Like, what kind of genres were you interested in early on?
Like within music.
Sorry, can you say it again?
Like within classical music,
No, just any. Just I mean, what were you listening to when you were 5 years old, bopping around? I don't know. Just some of your early musical interests.
Okay, well, growing up, I was definitely influenced by my dad, who loved slow rock. So I think I grew up with a bunch of Chicago Bernie stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, I grew up with some of that.
yeah.
I listen to oldies in the radio that my parents listened to. And
Yeah.
the 60s, 70s pop
Mhm.
tunes. Yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah.
So other than like already being into the like being born into a classical family, I have like two sets of family, my mom and my stepdad, and then my dad and my stepmom. So when I was a kid, they introduced me to I always had with classical music, um, especially at such a young age, it's very hard to really interpret what's going on, right? Like you can play Happy Farmer by Schumann and with your Suzuki. When I was a Suzuki kid, so I'm playing, and you're playing Happy Farmer, and you have no idea that Schumann has written like these, and like you don't know that he like broke his fingers and he was like submitted to a mental asylum. Like you don't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very innocent, so you don't really know how to kind of like splurge out. Once you get older and you have experiences. So actually, what I found helpful for me was my stepfather actually introduced me to Queen when I was a kid, and I really got into rock, and I would see like live classic rock bands, so like the Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Queen, Rush, like all those guys live, and it gave me a really good sense of how to work on my stage presence, because I feel stage presence is a very underrated skill that you can have as a musician. People don't, because you really focus on your intonation, your articulation, and your phrasing, which is true. But at the end of the day, you're performing. I'm sorry, this is getting very like redundant, but and you're up on a stage. So other than this, I also play rock bass guitar. So you have other things outside of classical music that have really been huge inspirations once you start performing, or I mean, I'm not like taking my shirt off on a stage and drenching my hair with water, the rock stars are, but it's
Yeah.
that type of,
That probably would have changed the feeling of your performance quite a bit. What do you guys listen to now? What are your interests now outside of classical music?
There's a lot. For me right now, I'm sort of into a lot of indie songs, acoustical songs, any song that is sort of just because I just like that simple melody with like an acoustic guitar. I'm just really into that sort of vibe, and it makes me feel relaxed and calm. Like without that music playing, I cannot concentrate studying or do something. I always like some background music like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I usually don't listen too much classical music if I want to relax, just because when I listen to classical music, I start analyzing.
Yeah, you do. You start.
Yeah.
Listening to jazz, so like classic jazz and the singers. And it's wonderful.
And their improvisation.
Yeah, I did improvise a little bit when I was younger, and I really am very fascinated when people improvise very well by ear. So that's what I love.
Outside of classical music, the type of music that I've been listening to a lot right now, there's like the huge like indie lo-fi revolution right now with like everyone's making, little bands, and it's nice to see because how bands kind of died out,
Mhm.
and I've really been following like new era bands that have made it, today, that are very interesting, because you really have to find a unique sound because all the other sounds have already been taken. So that's what I've been doing outside of cello, because like they said, sometimes you need a break from the classical music because it's a very demanding profession, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need to separate yourself from it. But I'm not really separating myself since I'm still listening to music, right? It's relaxing sometimes to, like I said, sometimes when I'm listening to, some of my favorite cellists, I start like analyzing, like, oh, who does this different than other, you know what I mean? So yeah, I've been listening. There's a couple bands. One band called Krong Band that I'm listening to right now. It's very interesting. They're actually from Texas, and their band focuses on having a foundation from Thai funk,
Okay. Yeah.
mixed with some Latino inspirations from Texas and other things as well, like funky R&B stuff. And it's very interesting. It's really nice, and it's a 3-piece band. Guitar, bass, drums. And I really enjoy it. So
Interesting.
Who are some of your favorite classical composers?
Oh, so many.
they fluctuate
Yeah.
depending on how you're feeling.
Depending on what you play currently.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think my all-time is probably Bach, just because I've spent a lot of time with him.
Bach is also wonderful. Great,
and
great
every
composer.
time you always keep learning everything. Every time you play his pieces, you find something new. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Bach, but I have more too.
There's a list.
Right, yeah. Right now, I'm really into Shostakovich. His music's wonderful, and especially when you learn about his life, it's amazing. And so I've been really studying Shostakovich. But before that, the other two of my favorite composers is Ravel, because I think the temperament of the piece just suits me, of his pieces, and Chopin. Chopin's wonderful.
Yeah.
I love piano. I think every piano,
Yeah.
every piano loves Chopin. So.
For me, like, how you would say like Michael Jordan is the GOAT of basketball or sports. I would say like undisputably Bach is kind of there for me, especially with the cello suites and everything. I like late Beethoven. I'm obsessed with Schubert and Schumann, just the two shoe guys. And, I was obsessed with Brahms for a very long time. Like just it's just his 3 against 2 stuff never tires me. Like, and he does it at every piece, the triplets all the time, but it's just like, sounds so good. When I was younger, I really liked Tchaikovsky just because of the lyrical stuff. And last year I was really into Schoenberg, which was all of the 12-tone stuff that he had, which I thought was very interesting. But again, it fluctuates every year. It's hard because there's just so many composers have so many good tunes.
Yeah, they do.
It's
Yeah.
really nice though. It's like it never ends. So
We have a
journey,
lot of options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions that I have. Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience that you think our audience should know about being a student of music or classical music, or just anything that you want to share at all?
I think it's very cliche, and I remember when I was younger, I always got like annoyed when people would tell me this, but you can't forget that at the end of the day, you have to have fun, right?
Right.
It's because there's countless hours of preparation and lots of constructive criticism, and especially with the pandemic where you're kind of isolated and you don't really get to go to performances for like motivation or inspiration. You have to just kind of strip everything down to like you know, the innocence of when you were a kid and like you just looked at your instrument for the first time and you're like, wow, I really like how that sounds.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't forget to have fun, you know, because we as classical musicians, we get so we are so self-judgmental on ourselves.
Yeah.
and we don't really, like, you know, in a performance we could play something kind of out of tune, and so then the rest of the night I'm like, I played that note out of tune. But people weren't really, the audience isn't thinking that, you know. So it's especially during these times, you just have to remember like how music and art just you know, has brought so many people together through, this is kind of dramatic, but you know, like through wars and disputes and disagreements. And it's really, you have to remember to have fun. And that's what we did in our performance. We had such a good time. And I remember that night we were so exhausted. But, you know, it was like, you know, we need to perform this. We love doing it. You know, I could have the flu and I would still want to perform, you know. It's yeah, you just can't forget the simplicity of music, you know, even as complex as it gets. You have to remember that it's just 12 notes, or change.
Yeah, I agree with Marcel. Definitely have fun and don't be too self-judgmental on yourself, because at the end of the day, you go on stage and you just play everything that you've worked on by yourself in the room, in a secluded room, all alone by yourself. Anything can happen in that performance. And I think once you get on that stage, you just play and do your best and have fun, because this isn't only, you're not anymore playing just for yourself in the practice room. There's an audience, and it should be played for them and to make everyone feel happy, you know, and share them.
Yeah. Well, KayCee, oh, go ahead. Did you have something to say?
Right. Wonderful to hear my members, but I also want to say that for the people who are watching, who are sponsors, thank you so much for your support.
Yes.
You can't know how much that we appreciate your support for the arts, because without your help, you know, we won't be able to survive.
Yes.
All we do is for giving and communicating like emotions and expressions, and hoping that we can all be in tune and make, in a way, like connect with one another, make the world a better place. You know, so
be in tune with each other. No pun intended.
Yeah. Okay. Well, KayCee, Vicki, Marcel, thank you for the beautiful performance you did for our audience. Thank you for being here with us today for this interview. And thank you to everybody who is watching. Please continue to watch, subscribe to our YouTube channel, SOMAC Videos, and also keep an eye on CCM for all the talented young musicians who are coming out of that program. Thank you guys so much. Bye.